The roosters crowed like rusty hinges as the sun crept over the Texas horizon. Alvin McCall stepped onto his porch with a groan, scratching at his chest through a torn undershirt. At 68, most mornings felt like a negotiation between his bones and the dirt he worked. His boots found the porch boards with practiced ease. The early air wasn't hot yet, but it would be soon. Another few hours, and the land would feel like the sun forgot how to be gentle. The silence stretched, wide, the kind of silence that only lives in places where people don't. 40 miles from the nearest neighbor, just him, his cow, Bertha, some chickens, and the ghosts of memories too old to haunt properly. He'd buried Martha 3 years ago, and the quiet since then had gotten louder every day. The coffee tasted like old habits. The loneliness tasted worse. The barn door squealed as he pushed it open. Chickens clucked their morning complaints, and Henrietta, his prize hen, gave him her usual death glare from behind the coop wire. Yeah, Alvin muttered. I'm cumin. Don't get your feathers twisted. He was halfway through feeding them when the roof exploded. The impact hit like a freight train. 1 second, he was reaching for the feed scoop. The next, a deafening crash sent wood, hay, and feathers flying. A giant object, glowing faintly, and hissing steam, had embedded itself in the dirt right in the middle of his barn. Alvin ducked behind a hay bale, heart pounding like war drums in his chest. Smoke curled from the crater, and as Alvin peeked over the top, he saw it wasn't a meteor or a plane. It was smooth, metallic, shaped like an egg the size of a truck, and cracked open down the middle with an eerie hiss. Light spilled out from the seams, warm, pulsing, almost alive. The top half split open like a flower. She stepped out. First came her legs, long, shapely, steady as a statue. Then her waist, narrow, perfectly proportioned. Her skin shimmered purple, like the skin of a ripe plum under starlight. The suit she wore clung to her like second skin, changing color as she moved. Blue, then violet, then a glint of green that vanished as quickly as it came. When she finally turned her head toward Alvin, her glowing golden eyes caught the light like lanterns in the dark. Alvin stared. His breath got caught somewhere between awe and pure disbelief. She saw him, tilted her head, then smiled. Reproduction. Compatible, she said softly, her voice heavy with an accent that wrapped around the words like velvet. Before he could say a thing, she walked toward him with the confidence of a woman who had never been told no. He backed up half a step. Now hold on, darlin'. She leaned in and kissed his forehead. Her lips were warm. They tasted like cinnamon and lightning. The kiss lasted 3 seconds. He counted. When she pulled back, Alvin was frozen like a man who'd just been kissed by the impossible. She nodded solemnly. Courtship initiated. What now? Alvin stammered. I will assist in repairs. Your territory is suitable for temporary nesting. Territory. Lady, that's my barn. She blinked. You claimed it. I live here. That's not a he, rubbed his temples. Who the hell are you? I am Zarelo, of the Zetavin cluster. Soldier, refugee, female. Yeah, he muttered, eyes drifting over her strange glow and fluid grace. I noticed that last part. She followed his gaze to the gaping hole in the barn roof. You wish compensation. You bet you're purple, but I do. Her eyes lit up, and she pressed her hands together as if in prayer. Then we are bonded. Alvin groaned. Lady, I think there's been a misunderstanding. But she was already unloading strange equipment from the smoking wreckage, humming to herself in a language that sounded like a lullaby sung by machines. The chickens clucked. Henrietta gave him another look, one that said, well, this is new. Alvin just sighed and looked up at the roof. What in the hell just landed in my life? And somewhere deep down, under the confusion and the protest and the cracked barn roof, something in Alvin stirred a spark of something that hadn't moved in years. Not quite hope, not quite madness, but something. And it had purple skin and called his barn a nesting site. Alvin didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow, like the thoughts in his head. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her Zarella with her glowing eyes and voice like warm thunder. Her spaceship, if that's what it was, still smoked. In the barn, half buried in hay, while she'd spent the evening rearranging his tools by frequency of use, and calling his screwdrivers primitive extraction devices. By morning, Alvin decided he needed coffee strong enough to erase memories. But when he stepped onto his porch, coffee forgotten in his hand, he stopped cold. His chickens were arranged in a perfect geometric pattern, not scattered, not clumped, together, arranged, in a spiral, no less Henrietta, dead center, clucking softly, like she'd just joined a cult. Alvin blinked, rubbed his eyes, and blinked again. What the hell? Then he saw her. Zarella was behind the barn, glowing softly in the early sun. She'd taken the top part of her suit off, revealing something like a shimmering silver bra, and was crouched over his vegetable garden. His tomatoes glowed, now actual glowing tomatoes. "What are you doing to my garden?" he called. "Optimizing," she answered without looking up. "Arrangement is inefficient. It's a garden, not a math equation. But now, yield will increase by 37%. Alvin glanced at the perfect circles of corn and carrots, and back at her proud expression. I liked it the way it was. She stood, brushing her hands on her thighs, leaving faint trails of light. "You do not like improvements." "I didn't say that," he muttered. "I just didn't ask for them." She tilted her head, confused. "You offer shelter? You provide food. This is your mating ritual, is it not?" "No," Alvin said, pinching the bridge of his nose. "It's called being polite. On my world, polite means mating consideration. Well, on my world, polite means not mating." She looked disappointed, not offended, not angry, just like she didn't understand. And for some reason, that made Alvin feel worse, inside. Over a breakfast of eggs and toast, which Zarella called primitive nutrition units, he tried to explain human customs. She sat across from him, eating cautiously, taking tiny bites and humming low approval with each one. "Your food," she said, eyes wide, "has flavor. You don't have flavor. Efficiency overrides pleasure in Zitavan culture." "Well," Alvin said, pushing his plate toward her, "welcome to Earth, where flavor is the only reason. We survive Mondays." She smiled and took another bite of toast. After breakfast, Alvin tried to return to normal. He fixed the south fence, checked on Bertha, tried not to think about the alien in his garden, her silver hair catching sunlight like a dream he'd forgotten how to have. By lunch, he gave up on pretending. "You know," he said, setting down a plate of ham and cheese in front of her, "I used to have a wife who rearranged everything too, said I was too stubborn, that I needed change." Zarella's eyes softened. "You miss her?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I miss the mess. I miss her throwing my socks out because they had holes, even though I liked them that way. I miss arguing about what to plant. I miss her cooking weird stuff and pretending it wasn't burnt. You loved her, every damn day." She reached across the table, her hand warm over his. "That kind of love does not die. It just rests." Alvin looked at her, noticed the scales on her fingers, the way her eyes glowed softer now, like candlelight instead of spotlights. "You always talk like that." "Like what?" "Like someone who's seen too much but still hopes." She smiled. "I am still learning hope." Later, as he stood on the porch watching her hum to the flowers, Alvin found himself smiling, too. Not big, not foolish, just enough. And when she turned and caught him watching, her eyes glowed just a little brighter. He looked away quickly, and inside his chest, something fluttered for the first time in years. Tuesday started like every other day with Alvin pouring coffee and grumbling at the sunrise, but it didn't stay normal for long. He was halfway to the barn when he stopped dead in his tracks. There, right in the hay near the broken roof, sat a glowing egg. Not a chicken egg. This thing was the size of a basketball, pulsing with soft golden light, and humming like a lullaby. Alvin blinked. "Zorella," he hollered. She appeared a moment later, floating down from the loft like she didn't have knees. Her eyes landed on the egg, then on Alvin. "It has begun." "What has begun?" "First successful fertilization," he gawked at her. "Excuse me." She tilted her head. "Do you not recognize it? Our offspring?" "Off what now?" Alvin stared at the egg. "Lady, I haven't even held your hand properly, much less you provided shelter, nutrition, emotional comfort. You accepted my bonding gift. I accepted a glowy rock. It is a living embryo. I never even touched you." Zorella looked confused. "Zetavan reproduction requires only psychic compatibility. Your genetic resonance matched mine. Creation occurred naturally." Alvin stared at the egg again. "You mean I got you pregnant with my brain?" She nodded proudly. "You are strong in mind and spirit, an ideal mate." "Well, that's just great," he muttered. "Now I've got a glowing baby in my barn. By Friday, he had 30 of them." The barn looked like an alien nursery, every inch covered in softly glowing eggs of varying sizes. Some purred, some hummed, some chirped when he walked past, like they recognized him. "This is getting out of hand," he said, standing in the doorway with his coffee. "It is a beautiful beginning," Zorella said, appearing beside him, her hands clasped over her chest. "Beginning of what?" he asked, exasperated. "A zoo, a daycare for glowing jelly beans, a family." He glanced at her. She looked proud, radiant, even. "You're serious?" She wrapped both arms around his and leaned her head on his shoulder. "You are my husband." Alvin stiffened. "We never got married. You accepted the bonding gift. You fed me. You let me use your tools. That's not marriage. That's basic hospitality." Her voice dropped. "Then why did you let me stay?" He looked down at her and didn't have a good answer. Maybe because she looked lost that first day. Maybe because her voice made the quiet in his life feel less heavy. Maybe because, deep down, the part of him that had been asleep since Martha passed finally stirred. "I don't know," he admitted. "Habit, maybe." "You are kind," she said softly. "You are lonely, and so am I." Alvin stared at the eggs again. One of them chirped and wiggled like it wanted attention. He stepped forward and laid a hand on it, warm, vibrating, alive. He didn't pull away. That afternoon, he tried fixing his truck. Zorella had been improving it again. The engine now glowed blue and purred like a cat. "What did you do?" he asked. "Enhanced fuel intake and reduced emissions," she said brightly. It was a '67 Ford. It wasn't meant to glow. Now it hums with life. Now it hums like a spaceship. She smiled. "You're welcome." Dinner was worse. He found his kitchen transformed. Bioluminescent flowers on the table. Steam rising from dishes he couldn't name. Zorella had cooked. "Try this," she said, placing a glowing blue soup in front of him. "I usually do meat and potatoes. This enhances stamina, reproductive performance." Alvin blinked. "I'm fine with just surviving, thanks." She pouted. "But it's delicious." He tried it. It was incredible. The kind of flavor that made you forget your name. Like every comfort food he'd ever had, wrapped into one warm, glowing bowl of magic. "This is illegal," he muttered between mouthfuls. "Soup shouldn't be allowed to taste like this." Zorella beamed. "You are pleased. More than I should be." That night, he sat on the porch, watching the stars, while the barn behind him glowed like a constellation factory. Zorella joined him silently, slipping beside him, her shoulder resting against his. "You regret?" she asked. He looked at the barn, At the eggs, at her. I don't know what I'm doing, he said honestly. None of us do, she replied. We just try. And sometimes, trying is enough. He didn't answer, but he didn't move away either. The quiet of the farm was broken abruptly by a strange, melodic chime at the front door. Alvin frowned. The sound unlike any doorbell he'd heard before. It carried a cheerful tone that didn't belong in rural Texas. Setting down his coffee, he shuffled to the door, expecting maybe a neighbor or a salesman. Instead, hovering inches above the welcome mat, was a gleaming chrome sphere, about the size of a basketball, dotted with blinking sensors and cameras that moved independently. A cheerful mechanical voice rang out, "Greetings, citizens. I am Agent Sparkles, of the Galactic Species Protection Service. Congratulations on your legally binding interspecies union." Alvin blinked, stepping back. Union? What union? The drone bobbed forward and projected a holographic display of paperwork floating in midair, according to Section 47B of the Zetavon Cluster Accords. Your acceptance of the bonding gift from Miss Zaralel automatically registered your union with galactic authorities. Your union has been approved, and you are now enrolled in the Galactic Household Program. Alvin shook his head. I never signed anything. I just gave her shelter. Your actions, the drone explained, constitute a legal partnership recognized across multiple star systems, with benefits including healthcare, tax advantages, and mandatory relationship counseling. Relationship counseling? I don't want relationship counseling? Alvin groaned. Zaralel appeared beside him, eyes wide and glowing faintly in embarrassment, before he could protest further. A low, cracking noise echoed from the barn. Alvin's heart dropped as he realized what it was the eggs were hatching. The barn exploded with movement. One by one, glowing eggshells cracked open to reveal small, purple-skinned humanoids with silver hair and the brightest blue eyes Alvin had ever seen, eyes that mirrored his own. Tiny hands reached out, toddling toward him with unsteady steps, calling him Papa. His knees gave out as he knelt, arms opening to embrace this new, unexpected family. Zaralel smiled softly. They recognize you. Genetic imprinting. Alvin held the smallest child close, feeling warmth unlike anything he'd known in years. The barn was filled with the soft hum of baby cries and glowing light, and in that moment, his lonely world expanded beyond anything he could have imagined. But the peace was short-lived. As night fell, dark shapes tore through the sky's leak, menacing warships that shattered the stars with their black holes. An ominous voice boomed across the prairie, demanding surrender of Zaralel and her offspring. Alvin stood firm, surrounded by glowing children and an alien woman who had become his mate. This is my home, he growled, and nobody's taking my family. The battle for the farm and for the future had begun. Alvin felt the weight of the world settle on his shoulders like the Texas heat, heavy and relentless. The warships hung over his farm like storm clouds, ready to drown everything in fire. His neighbors had gathered, drawn by the strange lights and rumors of alien eggs filling his barn. They weren't soldiers or heroes, just stubborn Texans with grit in their bones. Y'all ready to do what Texans do best? Alvin asked, voice steady, despite the chaos. Bill Henderson grinned, wielding a homemade flamethrower rigged from farm equipment. Mary Henderson's pickup truck bed was loaded with jars of explosive preserves, she insisted. Would make a mess, but no one get hurt. What don't deserve it? The Kowalski brothers revved their monster truck, bumpers reinforced with scrap metal and spikes. Alvin climbed into his tractor, the engine humming blue with Zaralel's alien tech. The plow had been swapped for a laser cannon, jury-rigged from farming tools and energy crystals. Time to show them how we welcome visitors in Texas, he said, gripping the steering wheel. The first wave of Zetavon soldiers charged across the fields in armored suits that shimmered like dark purple nightmares. Their energy rifles crackled as they opened fire, but the farmers were ready. Peach preserves exploded, sticky and fiery, sending aliens flying. The monster truck barreled through the ranks, crushing and scattering enemy troops like bowling pins. From the barn, hybrid children erupted like tiny purple rockets, their glowing eyes blazing with power. Linked by psychic bonds, they disrupted the alien tech guns jammed, vehicles stalled, and shields flickered. The children's combined energy formed a shimmering shield around Alvin and the farmhouse. The Zetavon commander, Vexvar, snarled, "Orders!" But his forces faltered against the unpredictable human defenses and the mysterious hybrid powers. Alvin charged at the command ship in his tractor, dodging blasts that turned the earth to glass. "You picked the wrong farm, bully," he shouted. The battle raged until the first light of dawn, when Nextver's flagship crashed in a muddy bog. Defeated, as the dust settled, Agent Sparkles floated forward, drones in tow. "Commander Vec, you are under arrest for violating Galactic Law 247, unlawful aggression against a protected colony." Alvin wiped sweat from his brow and looked at his neighbors, his alien mate, and his glowing children. "Guess this is home now." The galaxy's most unlikely family had won.